we can just open with Mitch. You're just gonna let me have it. Wow.
I'm gonna let you have it.
Yo,
Dude,
listen,
you got videos ready for this and everything, man.
bro, I already have like 9 videos in my head. But for just Metroid, Zelda's there's like 7. So like this is great. But yeah, man. I don't know where we start. Metroid Prime 4. We already got extra footage. That's crazy.
Yeah, and we'll show that too. Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I guess I'll do like a little opener. Like, yeah, so the game that we've been waiting 7 years for, that obviously has a very expensive budget because they've literally been paying people. They've been on payroll for 7 years, one development team, then another. They've been hiring AAA talent all this time. We're not sure what's going on. We're nearing the end of the generation. People are unsure of this title. And then bam, they finally show it. And what many people think might be the last direct before they actually reveal Switch 2. And it's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Many people didn't even think that Nintendo would showcase this game as the last game to close a direct. That's how many people sleep on Metroid, by the way. Many people didn't think Nintendo would use it as a closer, but they use it as a closer in a direct where they had Zelda in the middle. So I feel like that tells you a lot, in my opinion. But anyways, people have seen the trailer. It looks incredible. Many people are debating if this is a Switch 2 game. It's not. I mean, I think it's cross-gen, but this is Switch 1 footage for sure. We'll go into that. But it's an incredible game. It looks like it's clearly following in the line of, it seems like a sequel to Metroid Prime 3.
That transition right there. Jeez.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean,
look at the fog. Look at the sky, man. It's
the gameplay looks insane for how.
Look at that.
Like for like this is on a Switch. I'm baffled. I'm genuinely like Retro Studios. They need like a raise, a promotion, something. Because like I Metroid Prime 1 was like it was stunning and genuinely beautiful, but like I don't know, man. This is just it looks like it's on modern hardware or something. Yeah. And maybe they are giving us a trailer from Switch 2 and we don't know it yet. I don't know.
No, it's definitely not. I can tell you
regardless,
I bet my soul on it.
Yeah, but regardless, it looks fantastic. Like it looks so good.
It's crazy you bring up the Retro Studios as a reward because like all of a sudden, Retro Studios has had actually a pretty active generation because they ported Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze with Funky Kong mode, right? And then we got Metroid Prime Remaster, which many say is the most pretty game on Switch until maybe now. And now we have this coming, but then also during the same direct, Donkey Kong Country Returns, which is also developed by Retro Studios, is getting an HD remaster. It's being developed by a different studio, but still, it's made initially by Retro Studios. So all of a sudden, there are a handful of games made by Retro Studios on the Nintendo Switch, which is just kind of wild.
Is it not a port, Donkey Kong? I thought it was a HD port.
It's not a straight port.
It's not a straight port. Okay, that's fine. I just was clarifying as well.
I mean, it's
a port, but
it's being enhanced.
Okay.
So,
yeah. They're adding the
fair enough. No, yeah, fair enough.
The Donkey Kong model is not the same model. It's been reworked. The textures are at least been cleaned up. They literally have a different studio working on it, right? Like there's work being done.
Yeah, it's like Forever Entertainment.
Yeah, and actually, it includes all the new content from the 3DS version.
I haven't seen this
so that's being brought up to the standard as well. So yeah, I would call it a remaster, but it's a simple one, but still.
Audio listeners, love you to death. We're seeing amazing additional footage.
This is the extra footage, right?
Where can they find this footage at?
Right here on the Nintendo Prime.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah.
It's footage from the Nintendo Japanese Metroid Prime 4 website.
Yeah, it's just 20 seconds.
It is stunning.
It looks like a Halo game. Like it looks so good.
Yeah, and like what they describe. Remember how they describe Metroid Prime footage during the Gamescom? People like, man, these open fields and these open worlds. This looks exactly what they were describing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure how open it is yet. Like, I think when they show the giant tree and the bridge, and actually that extra footage shows more of the bridge, right? You can see it's a broken off bridge, right?
Yeah.
So there's clearly a lot to be seen. Like, it definitely evokes, in my opinion, like Xenoblade vibes in the sense where you see these giant structures in the background, you can't go to them, but it's not necessarily open world, right? Like, so you see that environment, and it is large for Metroid standards, but it's not like Breath of the Wild, right? Like, I think that much is clear. Well, or maybe it's not clear. Maybe they're kind of, fooling around with us.
Or it's just the intro area.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't like when I make this comparison, but I see it more like Destiny. Destiny is not an open world, but it has open areas, open zones.
Sure.
They're vast enough that you can actually go around. So I think that maybe this is.
I think that's the best fit for Metroid. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say from the footage without having to, I'm probably going to do more of a deeper analysis later, but I do feel like that open area, especially with the extra footage, it looks like that path, there's actually multiple paths there. And so where the waterfalls are going down, it looks like there's a path that kind of breaks off to the left. It's a little bit less obvious. So maybe we can go to lower elevations from there as opposed to just going through that hole under the smaller tree.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, it looks beautiful. It's vast. I know, Nate, you and I were already kind of like starting to get into a little bit of a. I mean, you should just tell me. Just say it. Say what you think, and let's see what happens.
Let me say what I think. I think it looks incredible. What are we talking about?
I know.
You talking about the other thing?
The other thing.
The other thing.
The other thing.
I've already said it on my stream before. Like, Metroid Prime 4 looks incredible. It's exactly what I wanted it to be, at least so far. Like it. I love Metroid. So the way Metroid's always been is the way that this game looks like it is. It looks like it's more Metroid Prime, which is awesome. I've been waiting, 2007? Is that when Corruption came out? Yeah. So a hell of a long time for a real Metroid Prime game, not Federation Force, anything like that. Samus Returns is nice. I loved Dread, but more Prime. Been waiting, a long time.
Doesn't it feel like a follow-up directly from Metroid Prime 3? Yeah, they use the visuals from Prime 1 Remaster, but it just feels like hey, look, this looks like it almost seems like they didn't take a break, and they're just like, all right, time to make Metroid Prime 4 after 3. Like that's how it kind of feels.
Yeah. So the thing that he's referenced that he wanted me to bring up is for I don't know, the better part of the last year on different podcasts and stuff. Andres and I have had this conversation about how to expand Metroid to appeal to more people and reach a bigger audience, kind of break out from what it normally does. Like right now, Dread's the best-selling Metroid game of all time. Metroid's been around a hell of a long time, just over 3 million copies sold. That's actually on the lower end for Nintendo franchises out there. I mean, that's not even up there with Mario Party.
It's still high though, right? Like we think about other companies, like to sell 3 million, that's incredible, right? But relative to other Nintendo franchises, it's on the lower end.
And to be fair, other companies that give AAA budgets, if a game only sells 3 million, they usually don't make any more of them.
If it took 7 years,
But anyways, that was a different conversation, and Nintendo usually doesn't use those kind of crazy budgets, so they don't have to sell as many. But we had this conversation about it kind of trying to break. How do we get Metroid to stop being? I don't know if niche is the right word, but because the genre thing is kind of niche. But like as an example, going into this direct, a lot of people thought that if they would have showed Silk Song, that would be a bigger deal because it's actually a more popular Metroidvania than Metroid. Now, part of that's because it's on all platforms, so it has a much bigger audience to reach. But even on Hollow Knight on Switch itself has almost matched the sales of Metroid Dread just on Switch. So I was looking at this because we talked a lot, like how can they make this game appeal? How can they make this reach a bigger audience? So one of the things, maybe drop the number. They didn't drop the number.
No, but it was smaller.
It was smaller.
It's smaller.
It's smaller. It's still dead center in the logo. It's just let's just not pretend it's not there. Anyways, they didn't get rid of the number, and then honestly, nothing I saw in there to me, and this is just I'm a big Metroid fan, so I'm trying to think of this from like the outside perspective. And this is where Eric could come in, who doesn't really play Metroid.
Sucks.
No. I didn't see anything in what they showed in the gameplay or in the world that makes me go, yeah, people who don't like Metroid are going to like this game.
I don't think they've shown enough, though.
That was my caveat. And I told Andres this, it could just be the intro area. Intro areas are typically very straightforward, very basic, very just teaching you the ropes. And that's probably what this is, a story setup / tutorial. They had that. I mean, we just saw Metroid Prime Remaster. For those who just played that for the first time, the very beginning, very structural tutorial, like
best beginnings to a game ever.
Yeah, it's a great beginning.
Yeah.
But again, that beginning didn't make people want to play Metroid Prime. So,
I'd argue 2.8 million for the GameCube install base is actually insane. That's more than 10% of all owners.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's really good.
But you just want to keep going back in time?
No. All right. So I'm trying. I got counter arguments, but I should be respectful and let you finish.
It's almost like it didn't did it not just release on a system with 141 million units and not even get to its old sales?
Yeah, it's a remaster. It's a little different.
So did Dread and Prime, do they both sell 3 million respectively?
Dread did.
Dread is the best-selling Metroid ever.
Yeah, and Nintendo also marketed the hell out of it.
Yeah,
But
Prime
they did market
sell more than 2 million.
Nintendo didn't market remaster really at all.
Yeah, that was a shadow drop. So
yeah, it was a shadow drop. Like there was not much fanfare or celebrations. Like, hey, here it is.
I can tell you a way they can make Metroid a 10 million plus seller. They could basically take advantage of the Federation, make it add the campaign with Samus, and then a multiplayer with the maps and the rest of the Federation.
And then it stops being Metroid.
It's just
that's when it stops being.
I mean, you still have the
Metroid
campaign. You have also multiplayer, so you can actually play. Back and forth.
I mean, the thing I love about Metroid is it's a very lonely series.
Listen, Cap.
Not gonna let you.
I want to hear Cap talk.
I say one sentence, and Mike goes, "Listen,
how dare you say anything?"
Listen, Cap. Listen.
You shut up.
Listen, Cap.
Enough of your shit.
What I'm saying is, you want to keep Metroid under 3 million. Leave it the same way it is. It's like the definition of anxiety is anxiety of insanity. Insanity is like doing the same exact thing, expecting a different result. So what you have to do with Metroid is Breath of the Wild that thing. Literally break the shell, do a new concept, keep some of the good stuff that you like as a Metroid fan, but expand it for other people who like other types of games that this could be adapted into, because right now there's so much potential for Metroid. It's a first-person shooter. Why not add multiplayer to it? Why not add maps in order for you can shoot at aliens or whatever, or other creatures or whatever, right?
Yeah, I would love to see multiplayer.
There's so much that could be added to this franchise so that it goes into the atmosphere and into the main market. Although I do think that when they do the movie or the TV show, that's going to help as well. But while that comes, for now, I think that's a solution for it.
But let's let Cap talk.
Yeah, let's say what was Cap
feelings about that multiplayer?
I think that for spin-offs like Federation Force, you can play around with it a bit. The difference is like with Zelda, there's a core essence that's a little bit intangible that stayed intact when they Breath of the Wilded it, if we want to use that as a verb.
Sure.
With Metroid, this is like a genre-defining series, right? What you're saying is to make a Metroid game that's not a Metroidvania, basically.
But what do you define as a Metroidvania?
But there's an item gating lock and key progression system that Metroid games are winding, twisting, claustrophobic, isolating corridor games.
Okay.
Right.
And so basically,
like your Hollow Knights or your, what's it called? I can't remember the name of another game that I was thinking of, but the Ori games. Sorry.
Love Ori.
Ori's so fantastic games. Prime 3 towed the line by having like some segments where you kind of like join in the fight, but even those tended to be short-lived and just more cinematic things to lead into some story event before they let you loose, right? But ultimately the Metroid gameplay is here's 10 forks in the road, poke around, 9 of them are dead ends, find the one, pick the knot apart. That's Metroid.
And I know that's Metroid.
I like that analogy. That's a really good metaphor.
But that's the thing.
Take the knot apart. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's Metroid. How has it's been since the beginning of time.
But I think it's okay for games to fit certain niches.
But what you have to understand that if that's not working to break it out of the shell in order for the general audience, because there's something about that game that the general audience can't get into. I can't really pinpoint.
But is it that?
I don't know.
Right.
I just don't get saying make it Halo.
All right, let me kind of
no, not make it Halo.
let me make something clear first, right? I brought up the 2.8 on GameCube for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. I think Metroid Prime on Nintendo GameCube did incredibly well, right? Like I'll get to the other stuff, right? But for its time, for its install base, Metroid Prime was really good, right? A lot of people wanted that. And then Metroid Prime 2 dropped off actually a decent amount, but it was still a solid seller considering everything, right? Metroid Prime 3 only sold about 1 million copies on the Wii. It had sold like 100 million systems. But I think there's a key difference there. the audience of the Nintendo Wii wasn't really predominantly core gamers. It was mostly casuals. So I think like a lot of Nintendo franchises that were core centric didn't sell that much better because they were on the Wii. Now you look at the Switch. The Switch is an audience that's predominantly core gamers. You know, maybe it's a more mainstream core gamer, but it is core gamers, right? They buy Nintendo games. Most Nintendo franchises have seen record highs during this generation. And so, you know, if they, first off, I'm not saying what it is. I'm just saying hypothetically, if Metroid Prime 4 is just more of the same, but just like a subtle evolution, right? Which is what maybe Nate's somewhat afraid of, but also is excited for because we fell in love with that, right?
Yeah.
So I still think if it's just that, it will still probably be a record seller for the series, just because the conditions for Metroid are better than ever. Metroid Dread's a 2D game. Yes, sometimes 2D games perform better than 3D, but there is a correlation with 3D games, bigger, more ambitious games performing better. I think if Metroid Prime 4 just follows the same formula, it will likely still be a record for the series. That said, I still believe that they will be evolving the series.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could say they Breath of the Wild it, but I could also say they Pikmin 4'd it, right? Like you look at Pikmin 4, they recognize that the series hadn't performed as well as they would have liked. And so they took a look at its foundations and they sort of tried to figure out what would be the best way to still make a Dandori game, right? But find ways to make it more inviting and evolve the series. And so they did. They changed the camera around. They brought in Ochi. And now Pikmin 4 is the best-selling game in the series and growing. What were you going to say, Nate?
So the reason why I think this conversation matters and why Metroid Prime I think is at the center of this, because I don't think that Metroid's going away. Dread did too well. There's going to be another side-scrolling Metroid game. It's going to happen. There's no way that there won't be. But we say that, let's say that this is like the best-selling Metroid ever and it sells, I don't know, 4 million.
Sure, let's lowball it.
Yeah, sure. Just to give a figure that's higher than it's ever been. But hey, you know, because we don't know what it's going to sell. The reason I bring that up is, unlike Dread, we presume this has a AAA budget. So yes, Nintendo has plenty of series that don't sell 5, 6, 7, 10 million plus, but their AAA ones do. This is the one AAA series they have that has never been able to live up to the sales expectations their other AAA games have. So the reason I bring this up is this game could be incredible, but if it say it doesn't beat Dread, we might not get another one. Because one thing to remember, why I think this might actually be one of their most expensive games they've ever made. This is made with a Western studio. This isn't their permanent staff in Japan. This is with that turnstile contract, temporary employee type of thing that's happening over here. And they've hired a lot of big name developers. We know those developers cost big bucks if you want to have the best of the best. This is probably a pretty expensive game for Nintendo. And they actually did this last time. Other M was another game they put a lot of money in. Didn't meet sales expectations, and they threatened to shelve the game forever. They ended up not shelving it forever, and they brought it back. But the point is, I think the budget's even bigger on this one, and I don't think this one's going to flop as hard. Relative flop as hard as other M
but
did.
is it massively profitable?
Yeah, is it going to hit a point where Nintendo thinks it's worth continuing to invest in that, or are they just going to go, hey, look, we make so much more money off these side-scrolling ones. Let's just keep going in that direction with Metroid and just forget about doing this style.
So a couple things.
I would argue though that the trailer they showed and when they showed it implies to me I legit am predicting it's going to be the best selling Metroid game ever.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
by far,
I think word of mouth has been so strong about it.
Yeah.
Word of mouth, do not underestimate word of mouth. Hollow Knight only took off because word of mouth. It was a fully word of mouth marketed game, which is why Silksong is in such high demand, right? To the point where it's basically a meme now before any direct to wish for Silksong.
For every event.
But with this trailer, if you compare it to every other trailer in basically any direct, but especially in this one, it is the most AAA Western studio game trailer. Yeah. You could slide it in with an Xbox showcase and it wouldn't look out of place. So I think the concerns of like breaking it out of its shell, I think that this is the most like widespread Western appeal title that Nintendo showed here when it comes to just like core gamers. I really think that everything else, like Zelda, is going to sell because it's Zelda. It's not going to have an issue. But even Zelda fans are raising eyebrows at it and being like, that seems a little weird. It's a little different. It's a little cutesy aesthetic, which is fine. I think it's going to be great. But this is like, wow. This, again, like you could put this in an Xbox showcase and it wouldn't look out of place.
The only thing that looks out of place is maybe the second half where they show like the forest.
Or the forest, maybe.
The forest.
But
the morph ball too, yeah. But, that kind of gets lost in everything else.
Here's where I think the trailer is brilliant. Because it has this AAA, huge, big budget, blockbuster game appeal in its visuals. But the trailer was all gameplay. And everything the trailer said to me is, don't worry. This is the Prime gameplay you know and love. And everything's going to be okay. You got your scan. You've got, again, like corridors. Epic space battles.
Do you feel like the scan visor's quicker? Because it doesn't. What I noticed from the UI, there's no visor option, and I think that might be smart. I think get rid of things like X-ray and thermal. They're kind of like not really needed. Mm-hmm. Combat and scan visor, but by doing that, the scan visor doesn't have to be set to this entire UI like mechanic. It can just be a quick button press.
A menu for it.
Good question. Has everybody played the campaign mode for this other game that I mentioned that I kind of compared to, not really.
Which one?
Directly.
Destiny
campaign mode.
I haven't played it, but one of my coworkers has like 3,000 hours in it.
Destiny campaign mode has a lot of gotchas, like a lot of scare factors. You open the door and something comes up and then you have to shoot it right away and this and that. So what I mean by breaking the shell is, keep everything that makes Metroid, just like they kept everything that makes Zelda, but just put it in a bigger bowl so that other people can join in and actually find something they like within it, because if they keep it the same exact way as the other ones, I guarantee you this is not going to sell 3 million copies. I don't care how good it looks. If it's the same thing that they've been doing for the past 3 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Well, they haven't been doing it for the last 10 years.
I'm thinking if it's the same, if there's nothing new about it, if there's nothing that will say, okay, this is very different, or this is Metroid, but this is they went outside of the box with this one, so that trying to experimenting. You know what I mean? Because I think that if you don't take risk and experiment, you're never going to know how far you're going to take a franchise. Yeah. And so this is realistically speaking, from a person who was coming in, not being a Metroid fan, trying to like it.
Are you interested in it?
I am. I'm so excited about Metroid.
Nick, you're not much of a Metroid fan either, right?
Okay, I was really hoping I would get a chance to bring
Let's
that up.
go.
So
jump in.
I'm not a big Metroid fan at all. I played Dread. I liked it. I thought it was a good game, but it wasn't like my personal favorite.
You're not a Metroid fan from playing it.
Right. So I watched that Metroid Prime 4 trailer, and I kind of want to get it.
Okay.
There was just something about that trailer where I watched it, and to Cap's point, it looks very Western, but it's still like I was hooked immediately because like she comes out of the ship and it immediately goes into gameplay, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then you see like the giant cannon get exploded off the thing, and it's still all of the Metroid stuff, but there was just something about the way it was packaged that made it a lot more enticing to me.
Yeah.
And now like I want to go back and buy Metroid Prime Remastered and try that before Metroid Prime 4 comes out, which is so funny because I never thought I would buy Metroid. But also what I think helps is the word of mouth of like all these people saying, hey, Metroid is really good. You should try it. And I'm like, I feel like if this many people say it's good, then it can't be bad, because there's a difference between a game being bad and a game not being for your personal taste, which is why I'm like Metroid Dread was good, just not for me. So I'm excited. I hope they do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like expand it a little bit, but also not go too far away from the core stuff, like adding a multiplayer. I think a 4-person multiplayer at minimum would be really cool, where it's like, all right, pick 3 of your other friends and you guys are gonna fight each other on this map, and that's all it is. But something simple like that, because that is one thing. I know Mike brought up Destiny. That is one thing that is like kept Destiny going for so long, is they have a really solid campaign, but they also have that overarching multiplayer.
Yeah.
And even the multiplayer campaign, like there's one that's online that you can do with friends. So even if they had that, it's like you have your main campaign and then there's a separate one that you can play online with your friends and you all can do that together. So I don't know, just something different or something a little different might be nice, but it's Metroid Prime 4 is more on my radar than it was 2 days ago.
That's awesome.
I want to hear the updates of if you do pick up Prime Remastered.
Yeah.
Like legit. But I think something that a lot of people make the mistake of is people think that Metroid Prime is a shooter game with exploration tacked on, and it's very much the opposite. It is an exploration game, and it being first person, it just happens to be the camera angle. And that's something important to always like bear in mind going in with. And that's why I think something important with Metroid and just how influential and important it is that almost every freaking indie developer is like, will cite Metroid as an inspiration. Full stop. Just saying. In the same way that almost every AAA developer will cite Zelda as an inspiration in some facet.
I mean, and I agree with you. I think the exploration factor for Metroid is the biggest part of the game. But wouldn't you want to take advantage of the shooter part, right? Right. You have that at hand there, so why not take advantage of it and add some other elements to that?
I will point something that I found interesting out, like during the footage. Right, there's this one part where they they basically what this 2-minute trailer was. It was like, hey, look, this is Metroid Prime as you remember it. Right. And so I think like you look like you consider what Nate is saying, right? He already made the point that it's a short trailer. We may not know, but if you actually look at the history of like Nintendo kind of revealing some of their bigger games, that first trailer isn't really that indicative of what the game is, right? Like, I mean, like literally, let's look at the first Breath of the Wild trailer. We knew it was open world, but that was it, right? Like, we didn't truly learn the core of what Breath of the Wild was until we had that big sort of like E3 2016 demonstration, right? Or take a more recent example, maybe slightly smaller scale, but still, I think, relevant, Pikmin 4. That first teaser trailer didn't tell us much. We didn't know that it was going to be an evolution for the series quite yet, right? So you look at this first like little bit of footage for Metroid Prime 4, and I actually talked about this like a few weeks ago in a video, like because my perspective has always been, or at least for a while, that this is probably going to be cross-gen. And now I think that more than ever. Like the more I learn about this game, the more I'm like, this is cross-gen. And we'll get more into that, right? But my point is that because I think this is probably cross-gen, let's operate on that assumption for a little bit, right? I feel like, we can do that. One, this game's expensive, right? So putting it on 2 consoles gives them more opportunity to succeed in that way financially, right? But also, two, if there's going to be an improved version, then you don't want to show that much of the game for its first demonstration anyways, but you want to show enough so people feel satisfied, right? And so they kind of have to, like, it's kind of a tug of war there, because I know there are people that are like, oh, only 2 minutes, come on. But at the same time, they showed us gameplay, they showed us some story stuff, they gave us enough so we know that it's Metroid. And I think they did the best of both worlds, right? Because I'm assuming there's gonna be a Switch 2 version. When they show that off, we're going to see an even better looking version, right? So I'm going to kind of take this to piggyback into that little like part of the conversation, because a lot of people think this is like Switch 2 footage. First off, it says Nintendo Switch, and second, Nintendo said they wouldn't show anything Switch 2 related, right? But sometimes trailers has some like, there are some weird things about trailers. Sometimes they're not truly representative of the game, but there's no watermark suggesting otherwise, which oftentimes they do. But if you pay attention close to the trailer, there's some impressive stuff. You look at the rocks, you look at the geometry, the debris. There's so many impressive things. But if you look carefully, there are a lot of textures that look low in detail. The fire is low in frame rate, right? So the game is 60 FPS, but there are certain areas that are lower in FPS. And so they do different things like this so the game can look and run the way it does, right? Also, the water in the forest scene apparently is also running at a lower FPS. And there are some lighting things that definitely could be better. There is like occlusion, for example, that's missing. Like if you look at like the cylinder that just rolled down, it has no shadow. So there are things that it looks like they just like turned off or lowered the frame rate of selectively, so this game can run as well as it is right now. But on a Switch 2 version, fire runs at 60 FPS, water runs at 60 FPS, right? The textures go to higher detail. The lighting effects are a little bit more pronounced. Maybe the fire effects are a little bit more realistic looking, because I think they kind of look a little bit too cartoony actually for the overall scene. But my point is that the game looks amazing for Switch, and I think they did such a good job with this that for those who play it on Switch, they're not going to be feeling like they're playing like a gimped version. But the Switch 2 version, I do think that they've also kind of developed it with in mind. Obviously, that's just my speculation. I do not know that. But I kind of figure that when they show off that version, it's going to look pretty impressive.
Yes, everything you said.
I like that you shoot the burst. I like that you shoot the burst.
Yeah. Well, my favorite part actually about this trailer, and almost everyone cuts it off, right? A lot of people have noted like the music and the forest part looks amazing, sounds amazing, but everyone cuts it off when they show the numbers, and that's my favorite part when we really hear the chorus pick up once it's already black and you see like it sounds so good.
That's the most Metroid Prime song I've ever heard. It sounds more like Metroid Prime than the Metroid Prime soundtrack. I don't know how else to explain it.
But you're right.
It does. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, that hit hard when I heard him. Oh man, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's give it a good listen here. Rewind it just a bit here. Here we go.
There.
Yeah.
See, that's the part people cut off, but that's like the best part to me.
Good.
Beautiful.
Of course.
Beautiful.
It's so good. And so that's another interesting thing. Like, that I already feel better about this game than Metroid Dread, which I love, by the way. That's my favorite game for its respective year.
Yeah.
They've already demonstrated with this trailer from a music perspective that they're kind of leaning towards iconic, already from just the 2 minutes we saw.
No, the track is very cinematic. I can picture that live in the Game Awards of next year.
Oh my god, an orchestral version or something.
And then the game loses to 3D Mario, but whatever. Better get best soundtrack though.
Yeah.
I think this game, I think if it has the proper marketing campaign, which I think this was like hey, it's back. We are acknowledging it and this exists. I think that's what this trailer was.
Yeah.
And I think over the coming months, and maybe in another Nintendo Direct, if there is another one later this year, we'll probably get more like marketing campaign and working through it and them bringing it to the forefront. Cause I know that is going to be a really big part of it is like marketing it. And like Nate was saying, if they've dumped this many resources into it, I can't imagine that they wouldn't, it's been they cared enough about it to reset development instead of just cut the game in general, like, so I think they obviously care about the game. They want it to succeed. I think they will do its due diligence and justice and try to get it, out there to people who may not be as into it, off rip. So
I still think we're gonna get, and let me hear what you guys think, but I still think Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are gonna be coming, and that's part of the marketing campaign. Because you have to reintroduce this to everyone who hasn't played it.
I was going to ask that. What do you think?
Right.
With that? Yeah, because
you just mentioned earlier that corruption, and it was hard for me to believe. I was like, "Geez, it's been that long," but it came out in 2007, right? Mm-hmm. By the time Prime 4 comes out, it's going to be 18 years since the last Metroid Prime, the new one. So just think about all the people playing games now, how old they are, based on like when Metroid Prime came out. So you have to reintroduce all three of them back to definitely the Switch user base, and obviously it's going to be the Switch too. But that's going to help Metroid Prime 4 sell.
Yeah, no,
that is totally part of the marketing campaign.
A lot of people that were younger back then that were not into the Metroid type of games are older now and can appreciate it more. Like I am. I can admit that. Before when it came out, I wasn't a fan, but now I was more of an adult and more into gaming that I appreciate it more. So I agree. I hope they do release Metroid 2 and 3. I will be getting them just to play them before I get into 4.
I was 17 when it came out.
Oh yeah, I was in high school as well. And
almost 40. It's insane. When the first Metroid Prime came out,
I was but a boy.
I was in high school when 3 came out. But
wow.
My only concern is, would there be, because this game's coming out next year, would there be a possibility of like fatigue, like Metroid Prime fatigue, if you have all 3 games, or I guess, well, 1's already out, but 2 and 3 come out within that year.
I think we got to look at Pikmin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Pikmin.
You'd think you'd get burnt on Pikmin faster than
I'll
like
never
Metroid
get burnt
Prime.
on Pikmin.
No.
You know what? I'm not either. But if I'm speaking, I guess, in the shoes of like the general gaming community, I would presume that maybe they would get more burnt out on Pikmin first before Metroid.
That's a good point.
But I love Pikmin. But
I feel like
a game
Pikmin's
that's
a little
not
bit more
for
concise,
everybody.
actually. Like, I don't know, Pikmin's a little bit shorter. So I don't know.
That's true. I was just thinking, like, was it the Crash trilogy that came out, and then that was like trying to be like their push for Crash, for like a new Crash game, and then the new Crash game sold quite poorly compared to the trilogy, which sold okay. And yeah, nostalgia is powerful. But I just wouldn't want the same thing to happen to beloved Metroid, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, Pikmin, like, you're totally right. Like, they totally did that with Pikmin, and it worked. So
the way it would work, right? Assuming let's say what you're saying is true, and there'll be a little bit of like too much, right? Like, if they put them out as a shadow drop like 2 weeks before, that's not going to kill Prime 4 sales, right? That's only going to help it, right? No. But if they do it maybe like 3 months before, then maybe there's something to what you're saying, right?
I would argue if they put it out 2 months before, it would kill the sales of 2 and 3 remastered, because people would be like, no, I'm just going to wait for Prime 4.
Yeah.
And then people would like buy those later down the road.
What if there's a direct mini in September, and then they drop them out there? And then
sure, let's do it.
February and March.
I want to play it, man.
I think it makes sense for them to come out this year, just because.
Yeah.
You know.
Question is Metroid Prime Trilogy available on the Wii U, or was?
Well,
yes.
The eShops,
or no, it was.
So if I can I get a physical copy of the Wii U?
You can find a physical copy of Metroid Prime Trilogy for Wii, and you can play it on your Wii U.
You can play with backwards compatibility.
Yeah, you can't download it anymore because those servers are down.
Exactly, and that's the thing is like Nintendo has to make these games accessible to everybody because there's a lot of people out there that will not play 4 until they played 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, and there's a lot of people who are gonna say, well, I'm not going to track down a GameCube or a Wii. And obviously you could just track down a Wii because it's backwards compatible with GameCube. But I think there's a lot of people who are like, you know what? Do I want to buy the Metroid Prime trilogy? Because it's not cheap. If they don't, if they're trying to see if they like it, right?
Yeah.
That's not a cheap way to go. So they got to get them all on the same console. And obviously, Nintendo's been very good at doing this generation. Like Andres, you mentioned a while back about Luigi's Mansion Part 1 coming out. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet. I actually thought we would have got that in the direct because it makes sense to have all 3. And we still might get it later. Would not be surprised.
August shadow drop.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Or October, because,
Halloween.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Halloween.
No, they got Mario Party. They're not gonna put anything else out in October.
Maybe they'll shadow drop a Jamboree.
What in the world? So I looked up Metroid Prime Trilogy for the Wii, and it's $300. Like,
it's not cheap, man.
Wow,
very expensive.
Super afford. You get 3 games.
I am glad I have all 3 of those physical.
Before Wii U eShop went down, I think it was like $30, and that was such a steal for the trilogy.
I want to say it was 20.
Wow. I think 30 Canadian dollars.
Yeah, the physical
so 20.
The physical edition has always been expensive.
Man,
it's wild. I got Tropical Freeze and Prime Trilogy for $20.
Oh, that's a steal. That's a good deal.
Total.
Meanwhile, now people have to get them for a lot more.
No.
Yeah. I keep getting the question. Is Mario Odyssey 2 keep getting? I'm like, right now Wii U's are very, very cheap. Get a Wii U, get Mario Odyssey 2 for the Wii U.
Galaxy 2?
Galaxy, yeah. That's
Galaxy, Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still wondering about that. Like I still think because we all talked about it when 3D All Stars was released. We're like, well, where's Galaxy 2? It was like, why would you omit that? Right? It's a great game.
Yeah.
And again, it's debatable, but a lot of people think it's better than Galaxy 1 or just as good. So it's like, why did we not include that? And you got to believe that there's a reason why. They're probably going to release it.
Mario movie comes out April 2026. They're still going to need some games coming out on Switch, even when Switch 2 is out.
Yeah, and it is a Mario movie, not Donkey Kong, by the way, for 2026. And that Donkey Kong game coming in 2025, the HD version, it aligns well with the Donkey Kong Park opening in 2025 too. So
I think it serves the case that they do want to build up the Donkey Kong brand, right? Like, so we got, what Mario versus Donkey Kong, which is not really a Donkey Kong game, but now we have a Donkey Kong game. We have the Donkey Kong Park.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a new Donkey Kong game in the works, but they're clearly saving it for Switch.
I do too.
Yeah,
it's for Switch too, and this also came out, in my opinion, to celebrate 30 years of Donkey Kong Country.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 30th anniversary. It makes sense. I'm actually surprised we're not getting it this year, but I guess they, I figured we get it maybe
next year.
August, right, Mike?
Yeah.
You just had a video talking about the no games in August and how that could mean something. And
there's nothing in August for
Switch 2 reveal.
Yeah,
it could.
Yeah, that's what
maybe.
That was your video, and I was like, oh, he's got a good point. It could be.
They schedule all these games back to back. Wait, and then they skip August and they continue.
So they kind of did something like that last year. Honestly, I think it's just a product of them slowing down a little bit. Yeah. But they made sure to have 3 months of killer holiday games. Zelda, Mario Party, and Mario and Luigi. Like, that's going to do so well for them. But since we are still technically doing the Metroid topic, right? Yeah. Let's maybe wrap it up by, how about each of us talk about one thing we saw in the trailer that we just thought was really cool.
I like the battle. The first thing, the opening shot, the transition from Samus, which looked amazing, to the actual battle. That transition was seamless and just kind of got me really hyped. And because it goes from transition to battle, all of a sudden she's in this middle of this big battlefield and all the shooting going around. That to me was like cinema. Like, oh my god, that's just beautiful.
It's also a slap in the face of the entire industry of like, hey, here's a CGI trailer. No. This is
just kidding.
It was gameplay, and then the reveal of the big bad. Like, is it Dark Samus?
Silex.
Yeah, Silex. Yeah,
Silex. Right?
Dark Samus is dead.
Dark Samus stay dead this time.
Yeah. Can I just point out that, not that it really matters, but like Samus and Silex are back in Metroid Prime 4. And who miraculously just popped up out of nowhere yesterday? But Samus Hunter and Silex. I'm not saying it's related. I'm just saying it's a little freaky coincidence.
Well, Silex Hunter, I definitely think, was more than a coincidence. He's a leaker. So he's listen, I talked about it the night before. I asked my chat, hey, is this something or nothing? And it was like 53-47. We were split. But Prime 4 was showing off, and Silex was a big deal. So I think history suggested it was maybe something. Yeah, could be a coincidence, but I don't think it is, because they also leaked F-Zero.
I love seeing a lot of developers from Retro Studios take to Twitter and finally start talking about the game. Like, man, I've been working on this game for so long. Finally, I can add it to my resume.
Yeah,
and I can't wait you guys to see it.
Yeah, that was really
sick. I followed every one of them.
Yep, same. I was like, wink, wink. Yeah. No, I think it was just really impressive visually, and also just from a standpoint of like, there's so much. Again, I just was really impressed that it looks like I was like, this is a Switch game. I cannot believe this is a Switch game. Like, that was just what it got. In the fact that it was gameplay, that was like, oh, this is what we're getting. This is sick as fuck. So yeah. Anyways, that's. I'll leave the rest of the trailer for everybody else.
I mean, I think my favorite thing
that's
was, Mike kind of stole my answer, but that opening cutscene of like her jumping out of the ship and then it spinning around and turning into gameplay.
Yeah,
that was just so cool.
Yeah,
man. I was like, yes, this is sci-fi. This is. I need to check my sci-fi box from Nintendo.
How'd you feel when that giant purple blast came in and you saw a purple flash across the entire screen? Like, that was a good lighting effect.
That was crazy.
It looks good. What can I say?
I was so hyped that I would cosplay as Samus, but I just don't have a figure for it, because you need those small hips.
Since you guys mentioned that, I'll just mention a random detail that I noticed. Like, so when Samus does her hero landing, right, and if you listen to it with headphones, you can hear more sound detail. And there's rain, right, which I love the rain, and also there's rain. You can see rain dripping down her visor and her arm cannon, just like in Remaster. Looks even better, I would argue. But when she lands, there's debris from the weight that kind of crashes to the ground, and you can hear the rubble as well. Like it's just a nice little additional sound detail that there's an attention to detail to this game. Like Retro Studios games have a lot of attention to detail. They usually to a fault, but I just loved it.
I think what I liked most was initially the music. Like it hit me. Because I see it on screen, and your brain's trained to you see something familiar, and you start paying attention to the other stuff. And obviously, I see something familiar. This is Metroid Prime. Yes, I know it has better graphics and all this other stuff's going on, but the music really hit. And then seeing the weather effects, particle effects in the sky, I was like, dude, that looks good. Like that looks really nice. So the lighting and the particle effects were awesome. And of course, how it closed with that classic Metroid theme. I was like, dude, that's so good. Yeah. So very excited. And, I think it's going to sell well.
This is the first Nintendo Switch version for Metroid, right? We had a remaster, and so this is the first Metroid they build for the Switch and beyond.
Well,
first ground up,
first Metroid Prime.
Prime.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about the 3D version one.
I mean, you can tell that a fun fact, right? The engine that they use for remaster is referred to as the root engine, which is the same engine they used to make the original Metroid Prime on GameCube back in 2002. And basically, Retro Studios has just been fine-tuning and enhancing and modernizing this engine for the last 2 decades plus, and they're still probably using it here for Prime 4.
Which is crazy.
Don't fix it.
No, they've just been it's basically like a bodybuilder that's just been getting stronger and stronger every day for 20 plus years.
Yeah. This scene too, right here.
Yeah, right here.
That was really cool.
There's an energy tank here though. So I kind of suggest that we go back and explore this area.
Yeah.
Like there are collectibles.
Which is good.
I thought the camera kind of just like the scene cuts right before she grabs it. Probably to not interrupt with like the, you got an energy tank box.
Yep.
But it seemed like it was a bit of a cut there.
You mentioned mockdroids earlier though, Cap.
Yeah, because the 2 Metroids flanking Silex when he walks in, they're mockdroids, not Metroids. So mockdroids were in Super Metroid, and they're basically like failed, genetically inferior Metroid clones. And the visual tell is that they have 1 nucleus or nuclei instead of 3, like the red circles, as people call them, inside the Metroid. There's just 1. So I think that there's some weird stuff going on with the story, but that's you wanted to wrap it up instead of getting into it. So
well, no. Well, I mean,
you said we should wrap this up, and then I'll just open this big can of worms.
I'm gonna run the risk here of going down this path. We want to know something crazy. You may already know, but like I think this is the year's like 20X9, and even though technically like we treat the Metroid Prime series separate from the main line for the 2D games, I think the year suggests it's after Dread. And so what's fascinating about that is that outside of Samus, all Metroids are dead. So mockdroids would actually make sense.
It would. It would be the best way to do it. And it would be something I've noticed and that I appreciate is that they're not doing like this the comic book thing of just like reviving characters who have died or whatever. We see no Phazon, we see no Dark Samus, no Ravenbeak or Chozo or anything. It's all either characters who we know lived, like Silex, or new stuff.
I think Ridley's coming back. Ridley can't die.
Ridley always finds a way back.
Ridley will find a way. You don't think they're gonna have Ridley?
I mean, it will be like maybe like a Ridley clone or like a Ridley robot again or something like that. But I really liked that Ridley was not in Dread because I was like, yeah, he's dead. Let him.
Oh, we had Kraid. Kraid's like been in jail for years.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
I don't know.
I wouldn't be opposed to a Ridley battle again.
I mean, however they choose to do it. Listen, if he just came back from the dead, maybe they'll have lore for that. Maybe they'll say he's like a necromancer Ridley or something. I don't know. Like,
well, even Prime 1 like gave an explanation for like Ridley survived because the space pirates freaking tortured him into existence again by cybernetically enhancing him after he died in the first game. So
he's an android.
They'll they'll work it in a way that makes canonical sense.
He's like a super android in 3. It's crazy. It's like
Yes.
he keeps getting his ass kicked. He's like, all right, well, time to add more metal parts.
Yeah. Just put more stuff on him. Yeah.
The other story thing that's neat to me, right, is that so we know Silex steals a Metroid at the end of Federation Force, right? Although now I want to go back and see if it's a mock droid or not, because I mean, if he has a Metroid, what happened to it? Did he kill it accidentally or not? I'm not sure. But what makes things perhaps even more interesting to me, right, is that if they are starting to maybe tie in some of the 2D lore, right, like if this is taking place after Dread, then it also kind of brings into question the sort of parental bonds of Metroids to their, parents, right? So Samus at one point was the mother to the Super Metroid, right, because she was there when it hatched in Metroid 2. So there's some history there. But then Silex is also a daddy to that Metroid at the end of Federation Force, and here he comes in with 2 mock droids, I guess. I'm not sure. Maybe they're just gonna I don't know. Maybe they're still Metroids and they just retconned the nucleus thing. I don't know, but
so
I think there's gonna be some sort of parental.
Silex.
He's Daddy Silex, for sure.
Perfect.
Daddy Silex, Mommy Samus. All right.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
A mommy Metroid and a daddy
I think it's gonna
Metroid.
be a plot point. Maybe it's a plot point only in subtle lore through scans, but there will be some reference to their parental Metroid bonds. I bet.
It makes sense.
Maybe.
Yeah. Nate, I don't. Eric, I feel like Eric's not even here, so I don't even know.
He's here. I'm here. He's here.
He's the
so
disembodied voice.
We were just going through mentioning a cool thing from the trailer, and then at that point we'll move on.
Is there any? Do you have a cool point, Eric?
I don't know.
Hated it.
Yeah, no, god awful, worst thing they ever shown in the damn direct ever. No,
you offended Steve. He
he just booked it.
Left. He took the really glorious stash with him.
Glorious stash.
No, I mean I'm not much of a Metroid player at all.
For now,
let's see just a little bit more. But it is piquing my interest. So there's at least that.
That's a
I'd
W.
like to see just a little bit more of it. But yeah,
Well,
I mean,
what do you need to see?
I don't know. I honestly
Ridley.
don't know until I see it.
Daddy Silex with Uncle Ridley.
No, there you go. I mean, I guess
Fucking birds and the bees.
More, so I guess I don't know what I'm missing or what I'm not. But
And second cousin Creed.
But yeah, no, I thought it looked good. I just need just a tiny bit more to I guess understand it. I guess I won't understand it because I've never played any of them, but
that's fair. I think they're gonna at some point do something to kind of get people who don't quite understand the series. Like they did that with Dread. They had a lot of explanations for it. I think when we get closer to release, they'll do things like that. I still don't think we haven't had the Breath of the Wild explosion moment, right? Like this was just a teaser.